Good morning, guys. We hope everyone's doing well today. This is Fred and Sheila with Hatfield McCoy Museum Adventures and Fred and Sheila Investigates.
Guys, I did a video the other day. Sheila was substitute teaching. I did a video where I'm just behind the camera talking to the screen, and you're seeing the same picture. Mm-hmm. And this video is going to be in reference to a video that another person did concerning Sam McCoy, Paris McCoy, Hatfield and McCoy feud. Anytime somebody does a video or does something that could be construed as history, I try to correct it. Sheila and I do. Because Sheila and I seem to be the only ones anymore that stand up for truth with proof, for corrections instead of just storytelling. That's where the Hatfield McCoy mini-series came from, is storytellers. And that's how they get the history mixed up on the feud and what took place. I was just going to play that video, but when we look at it, it's just me talking with the screen blank. We decided that we're going to put the sound of that with this video. But on this video, Sheila's more or less just going to walk around the museum and you're just going to sightsee. There'll be some things that comes up in the audio, and when they come up, if we happen to be near that area where we can explain some of it, we will.
Okay.
If not, other than that, you'll get a good glimpse of some of the items that was in Mother's and the McCoy family museum.
Okay.
So we're just going to start from here, and I'm going to mash play on this so we can follow this around. And after that, it will just be more or less listen to the audio. Sheila, you got anything?
No, I'm good. I'll just follow along.
Okay. Guys, when I make these kind of videos, I'm not picking on anybody. I know sometimes it seems like he's picking on this person, he's picking on... I've heard people say over and over and over on videos that, oh, I'm related to the Hatfields. Oh, I'm related to the McCoys. I'm related to both. But yet there's no DNA, and some of these people don't even tell how they're related. Are you related? Name some of your family members. Was it your mother's side? Was it your dad's side? Who was their grandpa? Who was their grandma? They simply say, yeah, I'm related to. They don't tell us anything. And some of these people don't understand that this is my family history. I don't want to get into what I'm going to discuss on here, but this is my family history. We're going to come back to that wall in a minute, but that's my great-great-grandparents.
Yep.
That's my great-grandparents and grandparents. That's my family. I've shown that through DNA. I've actually had DNA to prove who I am and who I'm related to. I'm related to both families, Hatfields and McCoys. So the Kentucky Hatfields was good people. Randall McCoy and the McCoys didn't feud with the Kentucky Hatfields. They feuded with the West Virginia Hatfields and McCoys. Mm-hmm. And West Virginia Hatfields feuded with Kentucky Hatfields and McCoys. Some Hatfields stayed out of it altogether. Some McCoys stayed out of it altogether. Not everybody was involved in this. But when people tries to tell history as a story, I get offended. And I think I have the right to stand up for that. Let's go ahead and go with this. And as we walk around here,
okay.
A couple of corrections here I wanted to make. History without corrections is just doesn't make sense. If we continue to spread rumors or myths, that's not history. That's the story. And Leo clarifies that. Sometimes he tells a story, but in this story here, he talks about Dean King, how Dean King is a storyteller, and Dean King writes books and so forth. And that's what Leo is. Leo is a storyteller, and he's good at it. But let's don't forget that a story's a story, no matter who it's told by, whether it's Dean King or whether it's Leo. Now, this sound may not be real good. We'll see as it goes along. I'm going to hit play, and we'll do the first part, and we're going to stop as we go along.
So, besides the fact that Sam claimed to have killed 40,000 squirrels with one rifle,
that would be the first thing. First of all, Leo has covered, so have we, if you'll go back through mine and Sheila's videos, we've also been to this cemetery and went to Paris McCoy's cemetery, and all of them, same thing. There's only so many cemeteries you can go to and do stories on. Then you have to start repeating yourself. And in Sam's first 4 or 5 videos that he's done on Leo's first 4 or 5 videos that he's done on Sam McCoy over the years, he has a hard time believing that Sam killed, I think it was 38,000 squirrels. And of course, it's got exaggerated through the years from storytellers like this, because the story way back was 38,000. Leo's got it up to 40,000 now by the time somebody else tells it, and they add 4 or 5 to it, 4 or 5,000. That's how stories go. That's how they grow. Because for years and years, it's been 38,000. At one time, it was 35,000. So it's just according to who tells the story at the time. Now, is that hard to believe? It's not hard to believe. Not hard to believe at all back in that time and day. Look at those woods there, guys. Those woods are full of bears, deer, coon, squirrels. It's not hard to believe, especially if you're a decent shot. What I have a problem is Sam McCoy didn't kill those squirrels, ever how many it was, with a rifle. He didn't use a rifle. He used a shotgun. Squirrel hunting Sam carried a 12 gauge 1897 shotgun. That's what he hunted with. So, or at least in the latter part of his years. I don't know what he hunted with in the beginning part, but it was a shotgun. There's never been a dispute with any of Sam's family or offspring or great-great-grandchildren that's ever said anything about Sam hunting squirrel with a rifle. Now, not that it can't be done. I've shot squirrels with 22 rifles before, but Sam used a shotgun, just like Randall McCoy and most of your people back in that day. What I'm trying to say here is how easy these stories and how storytellers and people can say this stuff in the history, but they have a problem accepting real valued treasures, the real thing. Well, why would they when they can just make it up as they go, I imagine. But let's see what Leo says here.
What are we talking about here? Well, if you're watching this video, you've most likely heard about the Hatfield-McCoy feud. If you haven't, the Hatfield-McCoy feud was a family feud that basically set this entire area on fire for a long time and still continues to draw attention even to...
It's really not the entire area where he's at. He's in Pikeville. He's in Pikeville, Kentucky right now. The feud didn't take place in Pikeville. The only thing that really took place in Pikeville, Kentucky was the trial themselves for Cotton Top and Wall, Hatfield, and so forth like that. That's where the trials were ultimately held of those that Frank Phillips had arrested and brought to jail. The trials were held in Pikeville at the old courthouse that still stands today. When I was a detective and a deputy sheriff in Pike County years ago, that's where the courts were held at, was in the old courtroom, the old courthouse. And very same courthouse that the trials was held in for Cotton Top and Alex Messer and Wall Hatfield and Selkirk and all of them. But the feud itself took place on the most eastern part of Pike County, which was Blackberry, Hardy, which is known as Hardy now, but it's really Blackberry Fork. Back then it was called. And then you had Blackberry, and you had McCar, and McCar led into Mate One, West Virginia, across the Tug River in the Mate One. And that's where the feud between that part of Kentucky and Mate One, West Virginia, the other part.
This day, Sam and his brother Paris played a role in one of the key events of the feud. The Hatfield-McCoy.
Now we did, Sheila and I have got 500 videos on the Hatfield-McCoy feud. If you go back to the beginning of this channel, of Sheila's channel, Hatfield-McCoy Museum Adventures channel, if you'll go to the start of it, you'll find a video there of Paris McCoy. I don't think they've ever done one of Paris McCoy. Paris is buried down in McAfee County, I think it is, where we had to go to visit his grave. And you know, there was one time, we make a point of that in our video, because one of these people once upon a time said everybody was ashamed. If you'll go to Paris McCoy's cemetery, you'll see where his name is actually Daniel Paris McCoy. So a lot of people over the years said nobody ever named any of their children Daniel after Randall McCoy's father, and that's simply not true. His brother Sam had named his son, one of his sons, Daniel, after his brother. Let's continue.
Feud escalated with the hog trial of 1878, when Floyd Hatfield, a distant cousin of Debunking Hatfield, testified that a hog claimed by Randall McCoy actually belonged to the Hatfields. Staton cast the deciding vote.
Staton cast the deciding vote. Guys, it was supposedly 6 Hatfields and 6 McCoys. Bill Staton was not on the jury. And to this day, there's never been a document to even prove that there was even such a trial as this. Now, the justice of the peace over that trial was my great-great-grandfather. If you want to say that there was a trial, Preacher Anse Hatfield was, in fact, the justice of the peace back then, and he's my great-great-grandfather. His daughter, Nancy Hatfield, married Uriah McCoy's son, Asa. That's my great-grandparents. Nancy Hatfield and Asa McCoy's my great-grandparents. But Bill Staton didn't cast a deciding vote like Leo says here. Bill Staton simply said that he had saw that pig in Floyd Hatfield's lot, or pig lot, and that's the only testimony he had. So when he says that he cast the deciding vote, that's not correct. It was Selkirk McCoy, supposedly, that jumped ship and voted on the Hatfield side, if you want to go by that. But now Sam McCoy, throughout the years, in fact, even in his memoirs, in his book, he says that Randall McCoy won that case, that he won the pig trial case. So again, who do you go by? What do you believe? Because this man lived it. Sam McCoy was there. He lived it and actually wrote memoirs, and they were turned into a book in later years. Let's go on. But we know that Bill Staton, we know that that's not a true statement. That's not a correct statement. That's not a correct statement when Leo says that Bill Staton cast the deciding vote. He did not. He didn't have a vote in it. He simply gave testimony. That's all he did.
Anse Hatfield's cousin, Reverend.
That is my great-great-grandparents. That's Preacher Anse Hatfield and Polly Hatfield. That's my great-great-grandparents. Their daughter, Nancy Hatfield, married Uriah and Aunt Betty McCoy. Uriah went into the Civil War with Randall McCoy, was taken prisoner of war and wounded after Debunking had deserted and left them all there by themselves. And Aunt Betty, of course, my great-great-grandmother on the McCoy side, was the one that took Rosanna in and delivered her baby. In fact, Rosanna named that baby Sarah Elizabeth. Sarah after her mother, and Elizabeth after Aunt Betty, my great-great-grandmother.
Peterson Hatfield, also called Preacher Anse, served as the judge in the trial. Though the Hatfields won the case, the bad feelings between the two families only got worse after that.
Nobody tells about the bad feelings before that. Where did the bad feelings come from before the 1878 pig trial? Well, they come from the 1867 pig trial that Sheila and I actually found documents of and have. And we did a video on it, many videos, where Ellis and Hatfield, along with 3 other friends of his, stole 4 pigs from Asa Peter McCoy. There's actually court documents to this. Truth with proof. nothing imaginary, nothing spoken in the history, but an actual court case where in 1867 there was also pigs stolen by West Virginia Hatfields. Would that cause hard feelings? Of course. How about let's go back to 1861 to 1865? How about the Civil War? How about where the hard feelings started, where Devil Anse Hatfield, who had only joined in the late fall of 62, deserted by February of 63. A few months later, he deserted in the heat of battle, along with a bunch of his relatives, and everybody that was left in that unit was either killed or taken prisoner of war. And that's where the hard feelings begun. But nobody wants to talk about that because that leaves Devil Anse Hatfield in a bad light, knowing that he's a deserter, knowing that he ran, he was a coward. Now, I don't leave that out. I'm not shy on, because that's a big part of the Hatfield and McCoy. Randall McCoy and Uriah McCoy spent the next 3 years in a POW camp waiting to be released, a camp that many people died in. And then he returns home, and of course he had hard feelings. Devil Anse had deserted in the heat of battle. But let's go on.
Now, accounts differ on what happened next. According to Sam McCoy here, aka Squirrel Hunting Sam, he and his brother Paris McCoy ran into Bill Staton on a public road.
On a public road. See, guys, we've never seen that. I've never seen anywhere where Sam McCoy has stated that. And that's where some people may have a problem with it. It's our history, guys. I'm Fred McCoy, the great-grandson of Nancy Hatfield, and Asa McCoy, the great-great-grandson of Preacher Anson Polly Hatfield. Uriah and Aunt Betty McCoy. That's my relatives. That's my relation. That's my genealogy. Do I have a right to call people out when they speak untruths about it? I think I do.
Sam said Bill Staton.
And he says that Sam says they met on a public road. That's never been in no story that I've ever read, no book, no family history, no nothing. This is the first time I've ever heard that it was on a public road, but I'm going to do some other corrections as we go through. Sam and Paris was actually, it's never been disputed by anybody that has any knowledge or relations to Sam or the McCoy family. And Sam and Paris was squirrel hunting. Remember, Leo has a hard time to believing that Sam killed 35,000, 38,000, or 40,000 squirrels, but yet he was actually out in the woods hunting. That's what he did. If you're going to kill that many squirrels, you have to spend some time in the woods. While they were in the woods, Bill Staton come through. He was a town drunk. Bill Staton was known as the town drunk, an alcoholic. And he came through the woods taking a shortcut to go home and ran up on Paris McCoy. He shot Paris McCoy in the back. He didn't see Sam. And when he shot Paris in the back, the hip, Sam McCoy shot and killed him. And that's the way it went. But now let's go on, because we're going to give Leo a chance here that he can clear this up. He can correct. If I'm wrong here, I'm going to give him the opportunity to correct me. Let's see what he says.
Was armed and hostile. Words were exchanged, and Bill Staton made a threatening move.
There's never been anything about words exchanged. It was an ambush where Bill Staton saw Paris and shot him, and after he shot him, Sam McCoy shot and killed. And Paris had an injury. He actually had a bullet wound. But let's go on.
So, fearing for their lives, the brothers opened fire on Bill. Damn. He said that the shooting happened very quickly and was completely total.
Now listen to what he's saying here. He's quoting Sam as saying the shooting happened very quickly. So hopefully we're going to see a document to that effect. But
totally self-defense. Now, it took a while, but eventually he was arrested, tried, and acquitted of.
Now, guys, he's going to say that again in a minute, or I would replay it for you, but he said eventually Sam was arrested, tried, and acquitted. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great? He shows a death certificate through here. He shows a couple of census reports. Where is that trial? Where is that court document? We've got a court document from 1867 where Ellis and Hatfield and 3 of his friends stole 4 hogs from Asa Peter McCoy. 1867, a court record. This is 1878 was the pig trial. He has no record of that. This is 1880. This is 2 years later when Bill Staton was killed. We got a court trial from 1867, but we don't have a court document to show because remember, Leo said there was an arrest made. He was arrested, he was tried, and he was acquitted. That means there was a trial, correct? That means there'd be court documents, correct? Where are they at?
Shooting Bill Staton. Now, the other story paints a completely different picture. And that version, Sam McCoy and Paris McCoy were waiting for Bill Staton because of his testimony against the McCoys in the hog trial.
See, guys, if you go with that story, they've waited 2 years. See, they tried it in their movies and in their books that they've written over the years. They want you to believe that Bill Staton was killed next day. Bill Staton was killed the next week. They were such hard feelings over that pig trial, Floyd Hatfield's pig, that they just waited for Bill Staton. They shot and killed him. Well, guess what? It was over 2 years later. Bill Staton wasn't killed till 2 years later. They sure staked him out a long time to get revenge, didn't he? They wasn't in no hurry for revenge.
Now, that story says that Bill Staton was confronted at close range and shot down with very little warning. Some sources place the scene near the Hatfield Tunnel.
See, guys, there's never been any history whatsoever in no book about a Hatfield Tunnel, about that shooting with Bill Staton. There's never been. See, Leo likes to, once upon a time, he said that Jim Vance, they drug him across the hill from Thacker Holler, across the hill over into Newtown over there, because they were trying to build. They want as many historical places. Now, this is Fred speaking. Take it for what it's worth. This is my opinion. But they want to make as many of these places famous back home as they can, and that's great. I mean, I don't mind the tours. There is a Hatfield Tunnel, and it's very interesting. There is Jim Vance's so-called grave that nobody knew where he was buried at. And now they've got his grave. They've got all these historical spots where people, and the more historical spots that they can create throughout the years, the better it's going to be for tourism, the more places it gives people to go see. Now, Leo says that he's crossed over it many a time, probably where the shooting took place and so forth. It could be anywhere back home. It was closer to Mate 1. It was closer to the bridge, to the city limits up there in Mate 1, towards the Buskirk area. But it could have been anywhere. Sam didn't just hunt in one place, but now Leo's speaking in the history here that, well, it was down here at the Hatfield Railroad Tunnel. No, there's never been nothing to that, guys. That's spoken in the history just to give another place to some relevance and related to the Hatfield-McCoy feud. But it gets better here. Hang on.
In McCarr, Kentucky. Though the exact spot has never been 100%, I suspect that it was on River Road, very close to the tunnel.
I suspect it was on River Road. What would make him suspect that? What would make him suspect it's on River Road? What would make him suspect it's near the Hatfield Tunnel? Is he promoting businesses? Is he promoting another tourism site? Could it be because we've never heard in all the history that we've done, all the research, this is the first time when he did this video. Now, he's done other videos. He's done other videos on Sam McCoy. Go back. I could be wrong. Go back and see if he mentions on River Road or if he mentions on the Hatfield Tunnel, because I don't think he does. Why didn't that come up then? If he suspected that or he thought that all these years, why didn't that come up 2 or 3 years ago when he done those videos? Because he hadn't thought about it yet. He just thought about what a good place this would be for sightseeing, what a good tourist attraction this tunnel would be, or River Road would be, or that's where they do the jet boat rides, the airboat. Good place to promote River Road. It's my opinion.
I have most likely walked across the exact spot where this shooting happened a dozen times.
No, this shooting happened up in the woods, Leo. This shooting was back in the woods. Unless you was back in the woods somewhere.
Not even realizing it.
Yeah.
Now, what was certain
good
is
storyteller.
that Bill Staton was still dead, and someone needed to pay one way or another. So, Sam and Paris McCoy were arrested, tried, and like I said, acquitted.
And acquitted. Did you hear that again, guys? That's the second time. That's the second time he said that. They were tried, arrested, and they were acquitted. Wow. That's some pretty good knowledge there that Leo's got. Leo knows they were arrested, they were tried, convicted. Now, he showed us census statements earlier, logs of census records when Sam McCoy was 9 years old and such. He even showed us a death certificate of Sam McCoy where he died of gangrene in his leg. Where's this record at? If he's got census records when Sam McCoy was 9 years old, surely he's got when he was in his 20s and killed Bill Staton. Surely he's got the court records, the court documents, because he says he was acquitted. He says he stood trial. I don't want to beat a dead horse, and I know that I am, but surely you guys are seeing my point. There's a difference in a storyteller and somebody trying to tell history, or pick your poison. Here, okay, I'm going to give you 2 stories. You pick out the one you want, and one of them so far-fetched that you don't. Guys, that's not history. That's not Hatfield McCoy history. That's a storyteller. But if you're going to say there was a trial, there was an arrest, show us the arrest warrant, show us the jail log, the arrest record, show us the court document where there was a trial, and show us where he was acquitted. Wouldn't that be great? You could shut Fred McCoy up with that. That would do it. That's what you call truth with proof right there.
With no one else alive to testify, and considering that Sam McCoy and Paris McCoy were the only witnesses to what really happened on the road that day, acquittal was the only choice.
Acquittal was the only choice. Would there even be charges if there's no other witnesses? Why would you have a trial if you have no witnesses on the opposite side? If there's nobody there to testify as to what happened, why would there even be there wasn't a trial, guys? That's my point. There was never a trial. What Leo's saying here, he's speaking it into history. In my opinion, it's not just my opinion. You're not going to find no court document for a trial that didn't happen. Now, again, if you do, I'll kiss his feet. You find a trial where Bill Staton, murder trial for Sam and Paris McCoy, was charged with murder, arrested for murder, and tried, and they were acquitted, and I'll kiss your feet, because it's not out there, which means that he's speaking this into history. He's telling a story for these people to believe that's not true. he's giving incorrect history lesson here. Now, let's go to this one here. Let's go to the next one.
More than a century later, the publication of Dean King's book on the feud told a far more dramatic version of the killing, one that shaped.
Boys, I don't think you can get much more dramatic than what Leo has told here. But let's see, he wants to talk about Dean King. I think he talks about Dean King. He's a storyteller, he says.
How modern readers came to understand the event, as a matter of fact. It made for really good storytelling, but it leaned much more toward entertainment than reality.
Oh, okay. Now, Dean King, he gave his opinion, or he wrote a story in his book about Sam McCoy, but it was just for entertainment. It was just it was a story. He's a good storyteller. What has Leo done here other than tell us a story? What proof has he shown us whether Dean King was not telling the truth or whether Leo is telling the truth? There is no proof. Do you know, guys, that in Sam McCoy's memoirs, he didn't even write, he didn't even talk about what happened with, he wrote about Jim Vance, about them shooting Jim Vance. He was on the posse that day. He wrote about several things. The pig trial. He never mentioned what happened with Bill Staton. In his own words, he never even put that in his memoirs. It's okay for Leo to fill in the blanks here with the way he wants. He can be a storyteller, but as long as Dean King or somebody else don't do it. Or that's my take on it.
Only 3 people really knew what happened on that road that day, and all 3 of them are dead now. The details of that day in Sam's life were taken to the grave with him, never to be spoken again or known by anyone. Was Sam just a good old country boy who loved to hunt and make babies? Or, I'm sure if you were to ask the family of Bill Staton, they would probably have a different take on the situation. They would probably use words like cold-blooded killer, something like.
Would they? Would they? Guys, go back and look. Go back and find the video Sheila and I did on Bill Staton. Where in the world is Bill Staton buried? Well, he's buried underneath the trash dump there at Sprague, West Virginia. We made a video, and we can't show you where he's buried at because there's a trash dump there. That's Bill Staton's family. He says Bill Staton's family would say he was murdered. Well, would Sam McCoy's family say that Bill Staton was a back shooter? Would they say he was a ambush, a bushwhacker? Of course. That's what they would call Bill Staton. But I don't know that you can get, because Sheila and I went and we knocked and we knocked and we knocked on family members' doors to get a story on Bill Staton, and none of the family wanted to talk about him. None of the family wanted to give us any kind of statement. Nobody wanted to show us underneath that trash where his grave's actually at. There's a junk pile at Sprague, right next to a church, near a mobile home on the other side of the railroad tracks. Go back and find that video. If I think about it, we'll try to put the link in here where you can just go straight from this video and watch that one. But that's where Bill Staton, the family didn't care enough about Bill Staton to give him a decent burial or to mark his grave.
On those lines. But we just thought it would be very interesting to bring you guys out here to the head of Frozen.
At least Sam McCoy does have a tombstone. At least he does have a marked grave where family and storytellers can go visit. Where's Bill Staton's grave, Leo?
Creek today and tell you this story about one of the most colorful characters from the entire feud. It's like
Guys, you know, we done videos on Sam McCoy, very interesting character. And if you'll look at Sam's book, and he talks to Jim Vance's wife. And when they got there, when the posse got there, Jim Vance's daughter-in-law was at the house. They actually thought it was his wife at first, and they were asking where Jim was. She told them they didn't know, and the Kentucky posse, Frank Phillips and Kentucky posse, got a little bit rough with her, talking rough. And Sam told them, said, you guys said there wasn't going to be nobody mistreated. We wouldn't fire at nobody. We wouldn't do anything unless we were fired upon. Now, if this is the way you all going to act, if you're going to act like the West Virginia Hatfields, I'll get on my horse and go back to Kentucky. And they started up the road there. They let her alone, started up the road, and then that's when Jim Vance's wife said, hey, boys, where you going? She hollered out. She'd been up there taking victuals to Jim and Cap. And then somebody spotted Jim Vance off in the woods. They started shooting. That's where he was killed at that day. But Sam McCoy was nowhere near as bad a person as what Leo's trying to act like here. Again, I don't know. I wasn't there neither. I can't defend Sam. But why is it that we have to take the low road? It was common knowledge. There's nobody that's ever disputed that Bill Staton wasn't an alcoholic, wasn't the town drunk, wasn't, again, there's nothing that doesn't, throughout the years, even in the Hatfield, some of the Hatfield books, they talk about Bill Staton and where he showed up drunk at the trial. And so, shucks, it's even in the movies. And you had a Hatfield sympathizer as a producer for the miniseries, so they even had Bill Staton attending the trial drunk. Look here, you know, sometimes you gotta look at things in different orders. You've got a man that's buried underneath the trash pile by his family, or he's buried there, but that's where he's at, but the trash pile was put there later, but the family don't care enough about it than to cover him over with trash. And you've got a man here that's buried, him and his brother both, like two decent human beings. Which one would you believe was the bad guy? Which one would you believe was that nobody cared about? But Leo says, I have a feeling the family would call Sam McCoy a murderer. Well, if he actually shot Paris McCoy in the back, in the hip, then he's a bushwhacker.
Like I said, I mentioned, it said that he killed 40,000 squirrels.
Guys, if anybody goes back and watches Leo's other videos of Sam McCoy, he's got other videos that he's done. I don't have time for that. But I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe Leo says 35,000 or 38,000 in his other videos. I believe. I could be wrong. He may say 40, and I may try to do that myself. I may try to go back and look through them, but it'd be interesting to see if he says 40,000 then, or is it 38,000.
A single with the same rifle. Now, what gets me, though? What gets me here, you know, I've kind of given it a little bit of thought, and what gets me? Bill, all right? Now, Sam and Paris are together, right? And Sam is known to be a really good shot. He's a crack shot. Okay, now he's with his brother. He's got backup. Are you probably going to come up and confront him? I don't know.
No, I don't think Bill Staton would come up and confront 2-on-1 Leo. I don't think, and that's never been the story. The story's never been that Bill Staton come up and confronted, until you said it a while ago that they met on a public road. A public road back in the 1800s? A public road? You mean a path or a trail or a creek bed or a... Nobody's ever said they met on a public road until today. Nobody's ever said they come up and faced each other. It was in the woods when he shot Paris in the back.
About that, I just don't think that's a really good idea, do you?
I don't think it's the truth. I don't think it's what happened. I don't think there's any proof of that. I think that's in your storytelling that you may want them to believe
It's
that.
a really good idea, do you?
Just because Leo says it, remember, guys, it doesn't make it true. And I'm not putting Leo, guys, I don't mean to be critical. I just, some of the stories, and I don't mind these other stories that he tells. It's hard to tell what kind of history he's told. He makes it up as he goes. I've said that for years on a lot of the stories. But I don't know nothing about those other stories. I don't know if he's making it up as he goes or if what he's saying is true, but I know that he's made up history on the Hatfield McCoy history, Hatfield McCoy feud history. I know it. I know it from, that's my family. That's my relations. So if he'll make it up on this that we know about, how do we know he hasn't made it up on other stories? I really don't care about the other stories, but I do care about the Hatfield and McCoy. I don't care if it's bad on the McCoys. I don't care if it's bad on the Hatfields. I don't care one way or the other. But let's tell the truth. Let's tell facts. And if you say there's a trial and there was a arrest and there was a acquittal, or even if there was a conviction, do like Sheila and I and show the records, because Sheila and I have searched high and low, north and south, east and west for any kind of documents and credentials we could over the last 50 years. It'd be nice to see if there was, because that means Sheila and I have missed it. We've never found it. And we know some other researchers, they've never found it. Some of them we don't even agree with on a lot of things, but neither have they. They've never, I'm sure they would like to see this trial and this arrest and this acquittal that Leo talks about. Because, see, guys, when you make a statement like that, you're making a statement of fact. He says there was an arrest, a trial, and an acquittal. He doesn't say there was a rumor. He says that it happened as a matter of fact. Well, if it's a matter of fact, he should be able to produce the documents.
But that's what the history books, the history books are the history books, and they say what they say.
History books are history books, and especially if they're from the West Virginia Hatfields from back in the day. But you got to remember, just because it's in a book,
History book.
just because it's in a video, doesn't make it true. On my videos, or Sheila's, or Leo's, or anybody, doesn't make it true. The difference in Sheila and I, we try to show truth with proof. We try to show the documents. We don't just show you a Census Bureau sheet or a death certificate and then throw in 3 or 4 other things with it with no documentation. See, he showed a couple of documents, and he even mentions that. This may be here. Let's listen.
The history books are the history books, and they say what they say. But it's still very interesting, though, to kind of read through some of the old records, some of the old articles.
The old records. Where is the old records, Leo? Not census, not death certificate. The most incriminating statement that Leo has made here is that Sam and Paris were arrested. Sam and Paris stood trial, and Sam and Paris were acquitted. Now, at least he had them been acquitted. At least he didn't have them been found guilty. But see, if they'd been found guilty, because then there would be other court documents to where they served at. Like, we've got the records. We've got the records from Wall Hatfield, Alex Messer, all these guys that served time in Kentucky State Penitentiary. So there would be records to that. There is no records. But he says it's fun to go through the records and find these documents. Where are the documents?
Census records and all of this kind of stuff. And
Census records, where's the court documents? That would be the most important document during this video, would have been that court document.
Look into these old stories and bring you guys out here and tell you all about it. Today to do it too. Anyway.
Now, guys, storyteller. I have never met the guy, don't know the guy, and really don't have a bad thing to say other than he's a storyteller himself. He wants to get on to Dean King. He wants to get on to other people in history telling stories when he's a storyteller. difference in storytelling and actually having the court documents to back up the story that you're telling. Because if you don't have the document, if you don't have the court records, Leo, then you just told a story. You was a storyteller. If you got the documents, then that's a historian. You're showing the actual documents. You're showing the trial, the arrest. You didn't do that. So in this video, ever how long it was that he did on Paris and Sam McCoy, he done nothing more than tell you a story. He told you that the story of how many squirrels he killed through the years, and he told you a couple versions of a story and of how Bill Staton got killed. Guys, I don't know if it's done any good or not. Just my 2 cents on it. I see these videos and I watch them. I only watch the Hatfield McCoy ones just to see how correct they are, or how much documentation, or if he found documentation that Sheila and I have never found. He's never produced one document that Sheila and I haven't already found or discovered or put in our books or our videos. So when you add things to this without documentation to support it, you're doing nothing more than telling a story. Thanks, guys. Catch you on the next one.